Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today we are going to be reviewing Doctor Who The Highlanders, which is a second Doctor story. Now, most of you are probably familiar with it. Now, we're going to be looking at the Blu-ray release of The Highlander, which of course has Christopher Lambert as the second Doctor, as we all know, and... Wait a minute. Oh, silly me. I grabbed the wrong thing. What I meant to say was The Highlanders, the 30th anniversary edition, which has been rescanned for a better Blu-ray picture. As I said, starring Christopher Lambert as the second Doctor, as we know it. Wait a minute. I don't know where my mind is at today. Alright. I don't know what's going on with my head today. What I meant to say was... the Steelbook edition of Highlander on Blu-ray, which of course has Christopher Lambert as the second Doctor, and of course Sean Connery as his time-traveling companion, Ramirez. And... wait a minute. Wrong thing. There it is. The Highlanders target novel with the second Doctor, which of course was portrayed by Patrick Troughton. This, of course, is Jamie's very first story. I've always wanted to see this one, as Jamie is one of my favorite companions, and I've never got to experience the Highlanders before. Of course, the original story is missing. All 4 episodes are missing from the archives. Only the audio track survives. I'm guessing some telesnaps, but I'm not sure how many. And I have to say, I've really enjoyed this Target novel. History is one of my favorite subjects, so I kind of like things set in the past anyway. But I really like a lot of the setup with it. I like watching Jamie act when he doesn't know the Doctor. Because the second Doctor and Jamie have such a strong bond. It's neat seeing that not present yet, because Jamie doesn't really know the Doctors. And seeing more of Jamie interacting with Ben and Polly is nice, because I haven't seen a lot of episodes with just them and Ben and Polly. Really just the brief time we see Ben and Polly in Faceless Ones, and then of course in the Moon Base. So it's kind of nice seeing a little more of that here. I like the character of Mr. Grey. He's a terrible, terrible man, and I enjoy how methodical he is and how he's just out to make money, and how he gets his comeuppance at the end. I really enjoy. I think that works out well. I like that the one guard that Polly's kind of blackmailing, actually, while not being a great person, actually has some redeeming qualities in him at the end. I enjoyed that. To kind of see him turn into a better version of himself by the end of it, I enjoyed, because he's kind of sweet on Polly. I really like Polly in this. She's very strong, very much that 60s woman, very strong-willed, you know, not going to give up, we're going to do this, we're going to save them. And I like that the Scottish woman that's with her, Kirsty, kind of picks up some of that over the course of the story, because she is very much an 18th century style woman, you know. Well, there's nothing we can do. What are we going to do? I'm just going to sit here and be upset. But by the end of it, she's kind of coming into her own and having more of a stronger will. She does kind of pick some of that up from Polly. It's nice to see that progress over the course of the story. Nice to see that Colin gets better over the course of the story, kind of the older person, Kirsty's dad. See him getting stronger over the course of the story. I really enjoy the second Doctor in this story. I love the second Doctor. He's amazing. And because Troughton is so good in this role, it's very easy for me to picture what's going on as I'm reading. Because whenever I read a book, I tend to mentally picture it in my head. What me and my subscriber, the Flyattractor, call the movie in our minds, or the movie in our head. We just visually imagine it as we're reading it. And with the second Doctor, it's so easy, because Troughton is so good in this role, for me to imagine every nuance of the way he says a line, every nuance of his facial expression as he says it, every bit of nuance of his body language and what he's doing with his hands. Because anytime I'm reading this and the Doctor's talking, I'm reading it in his voice. Like, I can hear his voice in my head. And the way he says the lines, the look on his face as he says the line, what his hands are doing when he says the line, all of that comes together perfectly in my mind. And so, even though I'm reading a novel of it, I'm still crediting Troughton for the performance. Because he's so good in that role, I can picture it so easily in my mind. There's parts of the story where he's in a dress in disguise, and it's hilarious. It's just so hilarious. I like when Perkins is playing cards with Kirsty and Polly, harassing them, and the doctor just sits down and sticks the gun in his ribs and is like, "Don't make a sound, play be calm." I could picture all of that. How indignant the doctor is when he goes back to get his regular clothes and they were on the trash heap. Can you imagine? On the trash heap. And how offended he is. Excuse me. The character of Perkins is an interesting one indeed. It's very easy for me to get a grasp of personality for a lot of the characters, including like the guy who runs the ship, Trask, the guy who was originally the shiprunner, Willie. You know, I can. These feel like fleshed out characters to me, even if they're not super fleshed out. I can still get their motivations and who they are, and I like that. One of my favorite, probably my favorite moment in the story, it made me laugh so hard, is when the doctor has managed to catch up to Gray and trick Gray and got Gray basically tied up and stuffed in a closet, and he's tricking Perkins. And it's absolutely, it's where the doctor tricks Perkins into thinking he's sick. The doctor's like, "Your master is a very sick man. He's gone to lie down. Lucky for him, I was called in time." As he spoke, he was gradually raising himself from the chair and staring at the short, fat Perkins, who shrank back from the doctor's intense gaze. "Great heavens, man!" the doctor shouted. "Your eyes!" Perkins jumped. "What?" "Your eyes! Come over here to the light. Bend back. Here. That's right." The doctor strode around the table, pushed Perkins back over the table, and bringing out a magnifying glass from his pockets, because of course he has a magnifying glass in his pockets, began to examine his eyes. "Oh, I thought so, he said. He seized Perkins' hair and banged his head back against the table. "How does that feel?" "Ow!" Perkins exclaimed. "You suffer from headaches, don't you?" He banged his head again. "Don't answer. I can see it in your eyes." He bangs his head on the table. "You suffer from headaches, don't you?" "Don't answer. I can see it in your eyes." He goes, "Here." Perkins raised his hand and tried to get up. "Do you call me a liar, sir?" the doctor said fiercely. No, Perkins said. "No, my head does ache." Abruptly, the doctor got up. "Of course," he said. "What do you expect when somebody bangs it on the table?" He got up and Perkins, unsupported, slid down onto the floor, his back against the table. "It's your eyes I'm worried about, man," said the doctor. Perkins looked up alarmed. "What did you find, doctor?" "My eyes." The doctor shrugged at the door. "Print blindness. You read too much." Perkins was worried now. "'Tis true. I'm a clerk. What must I do?" He rose to his feet. The doctor turned back. "If you don't wish to go blind, you must rest your eyes immediately for at least an hour." And he actually tricks the guy into closing his eyes, putting a bandage over him, tells him he can't open his eyes for an hour while the doctor makes his escape out the door. It's one of the funniest things I've ever read in Doctor Who. I like that. He bangs his head on the table. "You suffer from headaches, don't you?" "Don't answer that. I can see it in your eyes." "Well, I do suffer from headaches. Of course, somebody banged your head on the tables. It's your eyes I'm worried about, man." I love this story. It's interesting, too, because Ben and Polly are separated for so much of this story. And I tend to think of Ben and Polly together. Like, I don't think of them as Ben and then as Polly. I think of them as Ben and Polly. I usually group them together. Now, I used to do the same thing with Ian and Barbara, but as I'm seeing more of the First Doctor, I am starting to think of them more individually because they do get split up fairly often. And so, this has really helped me kind of do that with Ben and Polly as well. Because Ben, with a lot of it, is with other people, and Polly, a lot of time, is with Kirsty, the two girls. Of course, she later meets up with the doctor, and it's just the three of them for a while. And it's nice seeing some of the stuff with Ben, like how he does that old sailor trick to get out of the knots when he gets dunked in the water, and he gets away, and plus he's a strong swimmer, so he's able to swim to shore. Also, reading the book over perhaps seeing the story probably works for me, because while I'm picturing it as a 60s story in my mind, like my mental movie of it is in black and white, for example, I'm picturing it in black and white, like it was made in the 60s. But I still expanded on it somewhat, like the scenes when they're on the ship at the end. I pictured them on a ship in the ocean, which is something they probably couldn't have pulled off with a 60s set budget. You know, I'm sure it's like the movie in my mind is kind of like if I had seen the Highlanders when I was 5 and not watched it since, how my imagination probably would have made the story better than it actually was. Like I have with some classic Who stories, like some of the ones I saw when I was little, like Inferno and Ark in Space. Going back and watching them 20 years later, they're not quite as good as the movie in my mind. Like, for instance, the Ark in Space, the creature the old memory in my mind wasn't, you know, green painted bubble wrap. It was slime slowly taking over a man. And that's kind of how it is here. It's like if it was made in the 60s, but with a slight poetic license flair, shall we say, where I expanded on things in my mind. It's really hard to explain, but I did really enjoy that I could actually picture them at sea on a boat, a massive boat, down in the hold, a massive hold. You know, Ben able to swim across the channel. I enjoyed all of that. A couple other parts I really enjoyed. Let's see if I can... I really enjoyed the story. It's interesting because I hear the Highlanders kind of dull, and maybe that is the execution of it, or maybe that's just because it's missing and the reconstruction doesn't do it justice. Perhaps the book is better than the reconstruction. I like here when, once again, the Doctor is tricking Gray into going down into the hold, and Gray leaned forward once more, his eyes searching the Doctor's face. "You had better be very sure." "Would I have come here and placed my life in your hands if I had not been very sure?" said the Doctor, with his eyes wide open, projecting that childlike candor he could turn on when he wanted to. Exactly. The author here, Jerry Davis, has that down. Projecting that childlike candor he could turn on when he wanted to. I adore that. He does project this kind of childlike innocence. Me? Tell a lie? No, my goodness. It is funny, because you know one of the things I love about the Doctor is people talk about how some of the older Doctors, they're more innocent Doctors than the ones we have now. You know, don't have the blood on their hands from Time Wars. You know, all that. They're more innocent. But if you think about it, I don't know if I've ever seen a Doctor that lies as much as Troughton. You know how Matt Smith's always like, rule 1, the Doctor lies? Yeah. All you got to do is watch Troughton and know that's true. Troughton will lie his ass off. Now, he's not doing it maliciously. He's doing it to get the upper hand and, you know, confuse people. He's very much like Columbo in that making people think he's a lot dumber than he really is and that he's no threat. He even mentions that in The Dominators. One of the great things about The Dominators, I love that line, is, you know, I forget exactly what he says, but, you know, if people think you're dumb, you know, dumb enough they won't think you're a threat, they'll underestimate you. Is it around what he says, paraphrasing what he says. And we see that a lot in his era where he's kind of playing the fool. But if you think about it, he's straight up lying. He's straight up lying. He lies so much in this story with the things he tells Gray. He lies through his teeth. I don't know if there's another Doctor that can lie through their teeth so straight-faced as Troughton. It's the same Doctor. He will. Again, there's nothing malicious about it. He's doing what he's got to do to get out of a situation. I absolutely love the fact that man can just lie and lie and lie and lie and never blink an eye about it. I adore that. And then, let's see if I can find the other one I'm looking for. It's when Gray, the one guy who kind of redeems himself at the end, is arresting Gray, and Gray's like, "You're wasting your breath, Doctor. It's all perfectly legal. The prisoners chose to sign the contract of transportation to the colonies," because he had been tricking basically the prisoners into signing contracts so he could sell them as indentured servants. And the Doctor's like, "Contracts? I don't believe I saw any contracts. Did you, Ben?" Ben's like, "I wouldn't know what they were. Would you, Jamie?" "I don't know anything about contracts," Jamie says. And that's when Gray starts getting flustered. "Now the contracts were signed. I have them right here." He felt in his pockets. And then his face changed colors. He patted the other pocket and he's like, "I knew they were." And the Doctor's like, "Tut, tut, sad, isn't it? What's a promising legal talent, too?" So, of course, Gray gets arrested and taken away. And then right after that, a couple pages later, you see Jamie. "There's so much I don't understand. Where did those contracts vanish to?" And, "Yeah, doctor," said Ben. "Where did they go?" The doctor backed away from them. "I haven't the foggiest idea," he said. "Unless," he felt in his pockets. Ben and Polly looked at each other. They knew exactly what was coming. "You old fraud," said Ben. "Well," said the doctor, "imagine that." He extracted 3 large parchment sheets from his pocket and proceeded to tear them into shreds. I just love the doctor. "All right, where did they go, doctor?" Well, imagine that. They were in my pocket." The doctor doing slide. I love that. There's so many funny things in this story that tickle me pink. I very much enjoyed this. I think I enjoyed this more than I would have the audio CD or the reconstruction. Again, because I can picture, and especially since I haven't seen the story, I haven't seen the reconstructions, my mind is free to imagine it however it wants, which is a great thing about reading a novel you haven't seen the episode to yet. Like, I keep meaning to go read The Gunfighter soon, but I've seen that story. I don't know how much of that's going to play into the movie in my mind when I read it. But I really enjoyed The Highlanders. I liked everything going on with it. I mean, obviously, you can probably tell I had a lot of fun with it, and so much of it is down just to the second Doctor and Troughton's performance being so good just as the Doctor in general that I can picture that in my head, everything going on. I like Ben and Polly being separated and each having their own fun parts to play. I like Kirsty, the Scottish girl, kind of picking up on some of Polly's will, her strong will and some of her attitude, kind of becoming a little more forceful and strong-willed as a character. I like that. I enjoy watching Jamie progress through this story and how he decides to, how he stowed away on the little rowboat so he could help lead him back to the TARDIS. And I actually really liked the one British soldier who kind of became the better version of himself, because he kind of had a thing for Polly, and I very much enjoyed seeing Gray kind of get what he had coming to him. So it is a really good story. I want to thank one of my subscribers, Robin. Robin sent this to me. Robin's actually sent me several things. I really appreciate everything you've sent, Robin. The DVDs, the books, everything you've sent. I really appreciate it. I very much enjoyed this story a lot more than I think I would have the reconstruction. And I definitely think it's a lot better than its reputation. It was really fun, the Doctor running around in a dress, in disguise. I don't know. I was mentally picturing that as it happened. It was very funny. I absolutely adored that. So if there is anything you would like to send me, I do have a P.O. box down in the description below if you would like to check that out. Anything you want me to do an unboxing video of or a review of, Doctor Who related, sci-fi related, or just otherwise. I also have an Amazon wish list if you would like to check that out. I update that regularly. I've added several new DVDs on there, some Big Finish stuff, some non-Doctor Who stuff like Quatermass and The Pit. I also have a Patreon if you would like to support me that way. If anyone who has sent me anything would like to support me in any other ways, I would appreciate it if you check out my Patreon. I try to do an exclusive video a week just for my patrons, usually at the $10 tier or above. But sometimes I do one for my lower tiers as well, my $2 tier, my $5 tier. I do like to do something for them sometimes. Sometimes I do polls. Sometimes I do behind-the-scenes stuff. Just anything there that might interest you. I appreciate you checking that out. I also, if you haven't clicked the subscribe button yet, I'd appreciate if you would go ahead and click that subscribe button. I'm always trying to grow the channel. I think we're at about 719 subscribers now. My goal is to hit 1,000, but right now I'll be happy with 800. Every little step helps. Most importantly, though, thank you for watching.